hardest things to do as a writer is to make a satisfying conclusion to your story, let alone your series. Over the past decade, we saw many franchises go from beloved juggernauts of popularity to the poster children for bad conclusions. For every Breaking Bad, Gravity Falls, and Endgame, there's a Game of Thrones, Voltron, and Rise of Skywalker. And with the advent of more story-focused video games over the past decade, they are no exception to having some stinkers.
I haven't seen a finale that bad since Pompeii.
Now, there is one important rule here. True/canon endings only. Otherwise, we just have a bunch of optional bad endings. With that said, exceptions are permitted if all the endings are bad.
Otherwise, a very obvious candidate wouldn't be on here.
When it first came out, there was a bit of discourse over Soulcalibur V. Part of the blame comes from the story and the game basically trying to canonize the character creator and replacing a huge chunk of the established cast with a bunch of newbies. I will say this, however, the first half of the game is actually not too shabby. Patroclus, the main protagonist of Soulcalibur V, is sworn to the duty of Soulcalibur to kill the wielder of the sinister Soul Edge. The only problem is that it turns out he has to kill his sister. Ouch.
Awkward.
He reluctantly does so, and then this is where things take a turn for the confusing. Patroclus ends up going back in time to try and save his sister. He succeeds, but ends up clashing with the ticked-off spirit of Soulcalibur, and the siblings end up destroying both swords, ending the story.
That's it?!
This is how we're ending this 5-game-long saga spanning dozens of interesting characters. No resolution for Raphael and Amy. Sophicia getting killed off in a text blurb and she was never actually real in the game. Ivy, the greatest scholar and sworn enemy of Soul Edge, barely even a presence? I don't think Cassandra even got a mention. This is like if no one showed out to fight Thanos at the end of Endgame and the big three beat Thanos all by themselves. Except it wasn't the big three, it was their kids! Okay, the reason why this is so low that, in theory, there are a lot of elements here that actually work story-wise. The tragic irony of a brother being forced to kill his own sister for the greater good. The controversial thought that a blessed mythical sword is no better than the evil it seeks to destroy. All these sound amazing on paper, but the way they executed it here is so weird. So weird that it ended up causing a soft reboot of the whole franchise. But hey, Soulcalibur 6 did pretty well, so maybe they'll have a chance to bounce back. As long as you shove everything you loved about the original timeline in the back of your head. The Prince of Persia franchise had its ups and downs over its existence. The original and its sequel were super hard puzzle platformers that used stylized rotoscoping animation to have it stand out from its competition. The Sands of Time trilogy brought the series to 3D, gave the story a bigger focus, and used time travel mechanics to create interesting, mind-bending puzzles. Then in 2008, Ubisoft released a new reboot of the series for the next generation of consoles, and it was decent. The graphics were stylized and quite gorgeous. Even though it was a little repetitive, there was a lot more focus on puzzle platforming and a little bit of sandboxing, and yeah, the two main leads had some good interactions, if a bit weird at times. Combat had been streamlined and simplified, but it was given a lot of style and flair to it. It was a solid above-average game. And then the ending happened. To summarize, the big bad evil guy Armin is defeated, but at the cost of your companion Elika's life. Armin gloats from behind his cage that he may be defeated now, but he will eventually escape. So the prince decides screw that and undoes all the work you spent the entire game doing just so he can revive Elika. This, of course, also unleashes Armin again, and the screen fades to black as the prince carries Elika and a sandstorm of doom begins to engulf them. Yeah. As dumb as this ending was, if you really reach, there's a glimmer of hope in it. Sure, the big bad Armin was released again, but with Elika still alive, the chance of ultimately defeating him is still there in a potential sequel. But then Ubisoft released an epilogue DLC that was supposed to expand on the ending, and what did it do? Only add a couple more hours of content and end on a cliffhanger of Elika leaving the prince to try and go find her people. So, sequel bait, basically. For a sequel we're never going to get.
What? That's how it ends?
At least with the original ending, you could call it an up-in-the-air ending. Did the prince doom all of humanity for selfish reasons, or did he save Elika in the hopes that they will find a permanent solution to stopping Armin? Guess we'll never know. Thanks, Ubisoft. Oh, you can still buy the game on Steam, but that DLC that extended the ending? Nope, Gone forever. Thanks again, Ubisoft! Ugh. Oh boy, another Ubisoft game. Enter Assassin's Creed, a game series that has two separate storylines. One is the world of the past that we experience through the Animus, a sort of DNA VR thing, and the other being the present, where Desmond Miles and a group of modern-day assassins try to piece together memories of the past to fight against both an evil shadow group bent on controlling the world and the coming apocalypse. So with two mainline games, two spin-offs, and a couple mobile tie-ins and comics under their belt, it was finally time to wrap up a climax that had been building for nearly a decade. So how did it do? Yeah, kinda like that. So to summarize, it turns out that the sun is about to send out a solar flare that will wipe out all of humanity, and that an ancient race of proto-humans were wiped out by this as well. Thankfully, in the present, Desmond and his team find a sort of super bunker those who came before built. In it, you find Juno, who tells Desmond that the only way to save the world is to activate a device that will somehow stop the solar flare. Another entity from the past, Minerva, tells Desmond that if he does this, Juno will be free and she will seek vengeance on humanity. Well, being the upstanding citizen, Desmond decides that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one and sacrifices himself to save the world. But with his final act, he does nothing but dies and Juno escapes. The end.
5 major games of development. And you kill off your main character for that.
Seriously, this is a blindside for many Assassin's Creed fans. Sure, the promise of more is nice, but not when you decide to throw the bird at anyone who cared about these characters and then let the bad guy win. Oh, but I'm not done. So fans would rightly be angry at Juno, right? She killed the main character, and for the next few titles, she would show up here and there as a menacing force who's plotting to take over the world. And what do they do with her? They kill her off in the tie-in comics. That would be like if the Marvel Cinematic Universe decided to kill off Thanos in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The writing hasn't gotten any better since for the latest titles, so the whole franchise is in a sad state of affairs story-wise, but at least from the sins of one writer, you can learn what not to do. Even if it's freaking obvious to a 2-year-old! Remember earlier how I mentioned the rise of story-focused video games? Well, The Last of Us was one of the biggest leaps forward in that aspect. You know, a game did something right when it has a whole page of accolades. While zombie apocalypse stories had been done plenty of times before, it was the deeply human story at the center that truly resonated with people. And then you get to the ending. So it turns out that Ellie's DNA may hold the secret for making a cure for humanity. Unfortunately, making said cure involves an operation that will kill her. So what does Joel do? Does he make the ultimate sacrifice and put others in front of himself, therefore proving he still has a heart in spite of everything he went through?
Wrong!
He kills the completely innocent human scientists and hightails it out of there, lying to Ellie afterward. In the process, Joel goes from a tough yet caring father figure to an a-hole who doesn't care who dies as long as he gets another chance at having a daughter. This whole attitude of "fuck you, got mine" just really ticks me off. There was no talking, no discussion with Ellie about it, just Joel be Joel, I guess. The worst part about this ending is that other games before and since have done it better. In Nier, the eponymous character doomed humanity due to his own inability to perceive the shades as former humans. In Lisa, Brad's selfishness was called out by the other characters, and he was punished for wanting to keep Buddy to himself instead of letting her repopulate the world. Meanwhile, Joel doesn't even get a slap on the wrist for screwing over the whole world. Why are we supposed to agree with him again?
What? Okay, fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
The Dragon Age series has a rather diverse fan base. What I mean by that is there's a good amount of fans who can look at one thing and you can get a healthy amount of love, hate, or indifference out of it. I personally can't stand Solus and how nothing I do seems to make him happy, but I know plenty of others who actually admire his character. I adore Dragon Age Origins' tactical gameplay, and even then there are those who prefer the more active combat system of the later games. However, one thing that most of the Dragon Age fanbase can raise a mug to is just how terrible Dragon Age 2's narrative can get. Dragon Age 2 is where the Mage versus Templar conflict comes to a head. and it sucks. The game tries to paint both sides as sympathetic to a degree, but almost every quest in the game is peppered with the absolute worst that Kirkwall has to offer. It also doesn't help that Orsino and Meredith, the leaders of the Mages and Templars respectively, each have one foot inside of the loony house. Throughout your adventure, your companions constantly share their diverse opinions on the matter, one of which is Anders, who starts the series as this charming snark until he gets possessed by the literal personification of bad character plot. This will be important later. Long story short, the main character Hawk, and you by extension, make decisions based on whether you want to help the Mages, the Templars, or sometimes somewhere in between. Much like the rest of the games under BioWare's belt, Dragon Age 2 prides itself on player choices. Every decision you make in the game, heck, the entire franchise, has some influence on how things play out in the story. As a result, you get immersed in this world, choosing your words and actions carefully in hopes that you can lead your companions to the best possible outcome.
Spoiler alert, you can't!
No matter what you do, you will eventually be forced to choose between the authoritarian Templars or the radical Mages, all because of Anders. In his infinite wisdom, Anders decides that rather than de-escalation, the most just thing to do is to blow up a church full of innocents, including the Pope, just to get the inevitable war between the two forces over with.
Oh, galaxy brain move there!
That's real zero thinking, W.
What makes this ending especially insulting is that it completely devalues this game's merit of player choice. There is no good decision here. You're forced to become either a dogmatic imperialist or an extremist outlaw. The game pretends that this was an unavoidable outcome, when it's really not. Seriously, if Meredith and Orsino are the ones who are truly causing all of this mayhem, why is there no option to get rid of them both and say, screw you, you're doing this my way?
No, seriously, imagine how much better this ending would be if you had the option to do this.
Really? It is all up to me? Let me see. I don't like you, and I don't like you.
In spite of Final Fantasy XIII's divisive reception, it still quickly became a bestseller. According to Square Enix, this meant that it was time to turn it into the next 7. So here came the sequels. By far, the two biggest issues fans had with 13 were the extremely linear nature and convoluted story. To its credit, 13.2 completely fixed the former issue and actually gave you some choice in how to progress. As for the story, well, when you take the ridiculous terminology of 13 and combine it with time travel, you get...
If you change the future, you change the past.
Does not compute, does not compute.
Whenever time travel appears, it's usually the writers saying either, just please let us do this awesome thing, or we kind of wrote ourselves into a corner. Sometimes both. In either case, it can really overcomplicate your universe, and here is no different. And no mess of a storyline would be complete without a sucky ending, and oh boy does 13.2 deliver. So, after Sarah and Noelle finally beat Kais for good, what happens? Well, Sarah and Mog die while everything they, and by extension the player, worked for is destroyed. Okay, well that was probably just the bad ending. If I go back and spare Caius, I'll get the good one, right? Nope, he just does the deed himself and you get the same ending. Well, if I get all the fragments and the alternate endings, I'll get the true ending, right? Nope, same thing happens. Oh, wait, a post-credits scene that not so subtly mocks you for trying to get a good ending.
But we did everything you said! I followed all the rules!
With all that said, 13.2 avoids being higher on the list since Lightning Returns came out later, which gave us an actual satisfying conclusion. But by that point, all except the most die-hard of fans were burnt out, so what was the point of seeing it through? While it never quite reached the popularity of Phoenix Wright or Danganronpa, the Zero Escape series was pretty unique. It started out with 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, which was a combination of a visual novel and a puzzle game, including one puzzle where you had to turn the DS upside down.
Real shame it got changed in the remake.
Then Virtue's Last Reward came out and it was even better. It had voice acting from some big names, complex decision making, and some incredible twists. It ended on a huge cliffhanger with several questions left unanswered, but that was to be expected since there was a third entry coming later. Unfortunately, said third entry's Zero Time Dilemma didn't exactly live up to expectations. There were many issues that fans had, but the ending deserves a special mention. The whole goal of the game, and the whole reason that a lot of the previous game happened, was to prevent a virus from being released that killed 75% of the Earth's population. So when you finally confront the guy who released it, Delta, what was it that made him do it?
You see, there's this other guy who was never alluded to, who's going to destroy the entire Earth's population. And he figured that by releasing the virus, he'd have a better chance of killing him.
Not a great plan.
After that, you confront Delta again, where he does something unexpected. He gives you the ability to kill him. His life is in your hands, and it all comes down to this one last...
The strangest feeling I need to hide behind something in order to wait for my chance to shoot.
Well, it was only a matter of time. Here we have probably the most infamous ending on this list, Mass Effect 3. You've seen the memes, you've heard the analyses, and you know my basic thoughts of the series. Despite that criticism, I can admit that Mass Effect's overall story, characters, and world building is top-notch. For the most part. Throughout Mass Effect, you build your main character, make choices to shape the world, galaxies, and have those choices affect the story, your relationship, and the development of other characters, and how the story is supposed to end. About that last one. In Mass Effect 3, everything leads up to the final confrontation with the Reapers, and eventually, you will be given a choice from the Reapers' architect. This choice boils down to picking what color you want your ending to be. Actually, from how it looks, it's probably more accurate to say pick your Instagram filter for your ending.
The colors, Duke! The colors!
If you pick red, all synthetic life is destroyed, which includes the Reapers, but also all friendly synthetic life you knew. If you pick blue, Shepard becomes an AI that can control the Reapers, becoming something of a godly being, though could be corrupted later. And if you pick green, all life, biological and synthetic, will merge with parts of the other, becoming a new but harmonious society. Of course, making that decision for the whole universe is pretty insane. Well, it's not all bad. In the DLC, they also added a fourth ending where you can shoot the Architect in defiance. And then the Reapers win and take over the universe. While the DLC fleshed out each ending a little bit, and you can alter the fates of your companions with the choices you make, i.e. the better you do and allies you gain, the better the ending, it still feels like the choices you make don't mean anything. It also doesn't help that no matter what decision you make or what ending you choose, Shepard dies. So every relationship you made just blows up as your main character dies with no satisfactory conclusion. To be fair, with a series and story as complicated as this, it would have been difficult to determine what the best ending could have been. But between 4 unsatisfying routes and everything being decided from that, it still leaves people with a bad taste in their mouth.
Let's talk weeb stuff again.
I've talked about the Danganronpa series before in Top 10 Ensemble Casts, as it had a pretty solid lineup despite a lot of them dying. It's a series where you need to solve murders of classmates and then the killers get killed. It's pretty compelling. The 3 main series titles follow this format while building up suspense, as not everything is what it seems throughout the games. And, as expected, once the final trial comes around, everything you know is blown right out the door and some crazy truth is revealed that makes you rethink everything that happened throughout the game. Well, V3 does this too, but it doesn't make you rethink the game itself. Oh no, it makes you rethink the whole series. So what is this truth that V3 springs on you? It's a game show.
What? What?
The entire Danganronpa series is a multi-season game show for people's amusement. The first 2 games were seasons 1 and 2. The Danganronpa 3 anime was season 3. The final Danganronpa 5 is season 5. Why didn't they use 7 for that? Anyways, V3 is season 53. Yeah, that V is a stupid Roman numeral. When the main characters learn this from the game's mastermind villain, who spends her time cosplaying as past characters by the way, they are freaking stunned. So they spend the rest of the trial trying to stop it, and ends with the main character Shuichi rebelling against the viewers, shooting down their wants and needs, trying to convince them to shut off the show, one of the longest boss battles in the series. And it works! No one voted in the final trial and all the cameras are disabled, so the mastermind became distraught and the viewers made the ultimate robot of the group destroy the entire school, killing everyone. Well, after that, there's a post-credit scene showing that the last 3 good guys of the group survive, but now that the game show is over, their fabricated memories are now their only ones, and the world may not even want them.
Do not try my patience.
What makes this ending one of the worst is that we've had a whole franchise of material from games to manga to anime with characters and stories we cared about, just to have the last game tell us, oh, that was all a TV show, none of it was real. It left players confused and annoyed about the whole thing. It made it a bit worse when they found spoilers in the demo that didn't match the final product, and people wanted those fake spoilers over what we actually got. It's kind of fitting that the game ended with everything being destroyed, as that was what happened to people's interest in the series at that moment.
A lot of trilogies ended up on this list.
Super Mario Bros. 2, one of the first disappointing endings in gaming. Eternal Sonata, it just keeps going and going and going. Arkham Knight, blatant theory bait that's way too ambiguous. Mother 3, so did everyone die or what? No More Heroes 2, Desperate Struggle, revenge story that's unfulfilling and it just fizzles out halfway through. Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, a twist on the it was all a dream cliche. Borderlands, what was inside the vault? A monster! Yay. Kingdom Hearts 3, more like sequel bait than an actual conclusion, but that could change via the DLC.
Alright, no sarcasm here. Let me tell you about this absolutely wonderful game called Asgard's Wrath.
It is Norse mythology. You are the fledgling god of animals taken under Loki's wing. Funnily enough, he's the tutorial NPC. You have 2 tasks. Help Loki obtain special stones, and along the way, help needy citizens all over the 9 realms. As you travel the beautifully designed Midgard, Asgard, Niflheim, and Jotunheim, you meet dozens of gods and legendary creatures. Heck, the first boss of the game is a kraken. That usually bodes well. In terms of setting, Asgard's Wrath goes ham, trying to get as many references to Norse mythology as they can, and even try making them a part of the gameplay. In terms of VR, I would go as far to say that if Blade and Sorcery is Super Mario 64, then Asgard's Wrath is Ocarina of Time. In the same way, it's a combination of action, adventure, and puzzle solving. However, instead of using items to help you solve puzzles, you use companions. Part of being the god of animals is that you can transform them into anthropomorphic companions. The eagle can move turbines, and the bear can lift tree trunks, for instance. But that's not all. Each companion has their own unique fighting styles, personalities, and names. You can bond with them and even fist bump them. But as a god, you are limited in your interactions with Midgard, so you must possess a willing mortal, and each of them have big personalities, ranging from Ingrid, the no-chill warrior, to Sukan, the shifty dark elf, to Siki, the half-giant cowardly lion, to Ragnvald, who's a big boisterous idiot. Every single inch of the game was lovingly crafted to make a magical, unforgettable experience that everyone needs to try. Seriously, buy it. It's so good.
So, if I've sold you on the concept and you want to experience the greatness and majesty that is Asgard's Wrath, do not give the 5th stone to Loki. It will ruin the entire experience for you. You think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. I'm dead serious. I am completely sincere right now. It will take your playthrough and play the game up until that point. Alright? Spoilers in 5 seconds as to why. Alright? Everything you loved and valued and experienced in the game, it was all an illusion by Loki. It was all fake.
What?
Everything was an illusion. Your animal companions that you enjoyed fighting alongside? Fake. The mortals you possessed and you got really invested in their personal struggles? Not real either. Every single character, location, and hardship you experienced during this whole 40+ hour adventure was fake! It was all a ruse so Loki could break out of his prison and kick off the second half of Ragnarok. And then it just ends with you spending an eternity in a gilded cage with fake people. Are you kidding me? Every little bit of happiness and joy I experienced in this game was fake? You expect me to leave with a good taste in my mouth, partying it up with all these figures and enjoying the credits after ending with that little betrayal? You might think I'm taking this too personally. Yes, I'm taking it way too personally, because I was ready to go up to bat for this game. I was ready to recommend it to all my friends, praise it to the high heavens, and it stabbed me in the back. Now, if it was trying to make a point about valuing things that are technically fake, or if it deconstructed suspension of disbelief like how Spec Ops The Line deconstructed protagonist syndrome, I think I would be okay with it. But no, it's Loki tricking you because Loki's got a Loki. It's a nasty twist ending for mythological accuracy. Yes, this is technically within Loki's MO. Yes, you could feebly argue that a lot of the mythological inconsistencies, like Heimdall being a female, hinted at this. You could argue that Loki betraying you was obvious. Of course that was obvious! It's freaking Loki! That's not why I'm mad. Imagine if at the end of Breath of the Wild, it pulled a MatPat and you were dead the whole time. You'd feel pretty cheated, right? Or at the end of Dragon Age Inquisition, everything was a dream. Your bonds with Morgan, Fenris, or Iron Bull being completely fabricated? How would you feel? I feel like the courtesy of my suspension of disbelief was taken for granted. Ignoring any mythological accuracy, this narrative choice means that everything I did in the 60 plus hours I invested into this game meant nothing. I hadn't completed all the side quests, and now I don't feel motivated to do so because the fact that it's not real still hinges on the back of my mind. It sucks because I wanted to complete the game 100%. I felt that it earned it by virtue of just being a good game. But the ending comes around and I don't feel motivated to play the game any further. I don't want to start it over again. I almost didn't want to recommend it to all of you. The worst part is that I'm gonna have to eat the words I said in top 10 overhated games.
I'm pretty sure you guys all had fun up until the end, right? A whole game isn't ruined just because of an ending.
While the game as a whole is still fantastic and I still recommend playing it, for such a disrespectful backstab by the developers, this is, in my mind, the only choice for the worst video game ending I've ever experienced. And if you think I'm going back on that, you're dreaming.
Not the fire Joker! Come on!
Cut!
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. And consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member, and you'll get rewards like this. Our named shoutouts come from Luigi EXE Poor Man, Misra D Fox, and Misty Phantom. Our full sentence shoutout comes from Buzzsaw the Righteous, who says, "Hope you will all continue to support Josh and watch his videos and have a fun and righteous time while doing it. Thanks for watching."